in the off season, we like to come up with silly things to argue about. And one of the things I saw people arguing about this week is the status of crown jewels. So I thought I would spend a little time this afternoon taking a brief dive into recent crown jewel races and discuss mainly the Daytona 500. Just what's up, see what's going on with the crown jewels. Okay, so like step one, what is a crown jewel, which like is kind of the point of this video, and I'm gonna get back to that at the end. But for right now, when I'm gonna look at some numbers, Daytona 500, Coke 600, Brickyard 400, Southern 500. I came to this conclusion through a few ways. First, I consulted myself. That's what I think. Okay, I'd come back after the fact to point out like the what I'm calling the races: Daytona 500, Coke 600, Southern 500. Like, it's just name number. Anyway, continue on. Second of all, I consulted Zach and Alex, and that's what they said. Next, I consulted Wikipedia. The Wikipedia article for Crown Jewel NASCAR. This thing started as the Winston Million, right? That's kind of like what determined the start of like the crown jewel thing, was the Winston Million. That included Talladega, but like that's not in like a contemporary way. There's like multiple races at Talladega. They're always kind of a mess. Like the Daytona 500 is like hanging on for dear life. Anyway, so that's what the crown jewel started as. This article includes the current Daytona, Coke 600, Brickyard 400, and Darlington. This also includes the road course to Indianapolis. I do not count that. For another thing, I went to this Reddit thread from last year, and it seems to agree without problem that it's Daytona, the Brickyard, Coke 600, and Southern 500. These are the winners of the crown jewels. For the sake of including the Bristol night race, because whatever, I've substituted the Bristol night race in for the years the Brickyard 400 was not present. Is that fair? That feels fair. I also feel like I need to say it, like, because this Bristol stuff like might screw up some of my numbers. Where this debate like got messy the last few years is since we lost the Brickyard 400, we kind of lost the definition of what a crown jewel was. But I think having 4 in a season makes sense. Okay, so to give a breakdown of what's going on here, we have obviously the years that the race was run, the winner, and then this column is the best finish for that driver that season outside of that crown jewel win. So like this year, William Byron won the Daytona 500, and he also won 2 other races. The next one over is the count of top 5s that they got in the rest of the season, not including that crown jewel win itself. So this year, William Byron, he had 12 top 5s that were not the Daytona 500. Let's use this information and make some charts related to the prestige, or like what elite drivers are winning which race, and see what trends we can notice here. All right, so the first thing I've done here is I've taken these top 5 totals and I moved them down here. Obvious leader right now, close, not so close. So the Daytona 500 is not looking particularly strong at the moment, but I have an idea for how I want to sort this. Okay, so there, now our numbers are cleaned up. And what I want to do is I want to turn this into a nice little chart that can give us some pretty visuals. And oh, there we go, look at this. All right, so check this out. So this would be the winners of the crown jewels with the most top 5s, all the way down to the winner of the crown jewel with the fewest top 5s in that season. Okay, I'm gonna change the colors on this so that it's more visually appealing and maybe it's a little easier to see what's going on. Obviously the Daytona line looks like it kind of dies here. But also like the Coke 600 line is the only one that sustains down here to the bottom. The lowest Coke 600 winner, who is that even? 2017 Austin Dillon. In 2018, Austin Dillon accounts for one of the lowest Daytonas and the lowest Coke 600. Okay, I'm gonna add a trend line. Let's see if that makes things a little easier to read as well. All right, so now I guess this is probably as useful as this information is gonna get. So I've added these trend lines as like a 2-year average, just to make it like a little visually easier to understand. I hope. I know it's crowded. For the first half of this, these lines are like basically right on top of each other. The only thing that like really jumps off a cliff is when we get down here to like the bottom third. That's when Daytona really falls off in terms of when those drivers are getting top 5s. But actually, when you look at the top half of this, the Daytona winner is getting as many, on some cases, more top 5s in a season than the Coke 600 winner is. And I don't think anyone's going to come discount the Coke 600 as a crown jewel. That's like by definition the NASCAR crown jewel. It looks like at the end of the day, if we're going to call somebody that is like off of this line as like a fluke win, even though I don't think that's true, that only applies to the bottom third of Daytona 500s. I mean, we have a few here in the last few years. That's certainly why this perspective has changed. If 1/3 of races are generating this like fluke win, good for them. Good for them for causing the upset. But we also have a lot of Daytona 500 winners that are not just fluking into this thing. This goes across generations of super speedway racing. Certainly the super speedway racing these days is a little funky. If we're gonna have one fluky crown jewel, it can be the Daytona 500. I also think a lot of the value of the Daytona 500 is even beyond, like, it's beyond this. A lot of times it is won by some very talented drivers that are gonna have great seasons, and sometimes Austin Dillon wins it, you know? And I think in the modern era, you win the first race of the season, you're the first driver locked in the playoffs, you're starting the season leading the regular season standings, you have 5 playoff points out of the gate. Like, I think that adds a little bit to it. So you're not getting that in the other races. And then like even the point of like even like Darlington ends up down here with some of these numbers. Like look in recent years, like Chase Briscoe, Eric Jones on multiple occasions, like winning the Southern 500 without necessarily putting up big numbers in the rest of the season. One other thing I did want to look at here, these years, 10, 12, 14, 15, 16, and 20, those are the only seasons where the crown jewel winners are all like repeat winners across the board. So, and this isn't just like a Daytona problem, right? Like Southern 500 there. 2017, it was basically the whole slate. Brickyard 400 in 2013. 2011 was a funky year for the crown jewels, and that's regarded as one of the best seasons ever. One other thing I think that to bring up in all this is like the crown jewels aren't necessarily determined by numbers like this, obviously, right? The Chicago street race, bias aside, the prestige of the race isn't necessarily determined by these numbers. You can't just decide what a crown jewel is. It's a crown jewel because that's what the cultural power and like value has to it. Like the Chicago street race is one of the most watched races of the year. It's huge, but like no one's calling it a crown jewel right now. But we're gonna look back and be like, that was a pretty significant event. Shane Vegas-Bergen winning that first street race. It comes down to which way you want to look at these lines too. Like the Daytona one is a lot higher up here at the start, and then it drops off at the end. Whereas like Charlotte's the most consistent. If you're feeling mad at the Daytona 500, just start getting passionate about the Coke 600. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Have a great day.